The very first inspiration for making this film was I made a movie called The Last King of Scotland in Uganda about 6 years ago. And when I was there, I went with some of my actors into the slum area of the capital city, Kampala. And they introduced me to this whole part of the city, which was Rasta, where people had Rasta locks, where there was Bob Marley graffiti, flags of Bob Marley. And I realized that this was amazing, that no other musician has had the kind of influence that he's had, that people still, 30 years after his death, are inspired by him and treat him like a prophet. And this is very, very interesting, and it's unique. So that was the first inspiration behind it. And then I was lucky enough to meet the producer of this, Shangri-La Productions, and they had bought the rights to make a film, bought all the music, which is very hard because the music rights are very complicated. But they had done that, and they had then gave me the rights and said, okay, make a film. And there was no interference from anyone. There was no, you have to make this kind of film or this kind of film. They just said, make the best film that you want to make. So that's a rare thing that happened.
I liked it because I worked on it. I was interviewed in it, plus I was the main consultant for it. And I like what Kevin did, because when I met Kevin, he was trying to find out what was the essence of Bob Marley. He was looking at more the humanistic side as opposed to the allocates of prophet and, rock star and all that. And I think that was achieved in the film, a more kind of humanistic. People will understand where he came from, his early life in 9 Miles. In the early part of the movie, there's his cousin Sledjo, which his English is not that really tangible. It's Jamaican patois. But, he kind of give you, so you see his background, so it kind of shows you who he is, where he came from, why Bob Marley, why did he write all his lyrics, it was from inspiration, it was from life.
I think he has huge political impact. I think, first of all, he's known as a kind of icon of revolution. So often students around the world have 2 pictures in their rooms. They have Che Guevara and they have Bob Marley. And they're seen in a way as being 2 sides of the same coin. They both are writing about dignity, about oppression, about overcoming challenges in your life, poverty or whatever. And Bob's message is ultimately a positive message to people who are maybe going through a hard time, who are suffering. And he says everything in the end will be okay. And because you know that he came from that background, he says it in a way that is sincere, which is honest. It's okay for you or me to say, oh, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. You can tell in the voice it's not true, but in Bob's voice, it's about how he says things as much as what he says. That you know that he's suffered, you know that he's been through hard times, and that his message of hope is one that's very sincere. Before I started making the film, I liked Bob Marley's music. I didn't love it. I was interested in him more than the music. But now I love the music, because now that I understand where it comes from, and the more you listen to it, I think I also discovered lots of the music that I hadn't heard before, the early reggae that he made with Lee Scratch Perry, for instance, in the early 70s. This is beautiful, beautiful music, very, very simple. And I think that you start to see that actually reggae is a very wide genre, like any other. Once you get into it, you see that there are all different types of reggae. So his reggae, which is now called roots reggae, which means really old-fashioned reggae, is just one part of the whole spectrum of reggae.
Well, reggae music, they don't even call it that anymore. They call it dancehall, because it's gone through a metamorphosis. Like first Caribbean music was like mento, which was really a kind of country rural music. And then when we got independence in Jamaica in '62, in fact, this year is Jamaica's 50th anniversary of independence, we created our own music, ska, which had a lot of influence from music out of jazz out of New Orleans, a lot of horn sections and stuff. And then it went to rock steady, which was more slow down. Then it went to reggae, which even was a little slow, but had a funky beat that was, more international. And then after Bob passed, it changed. Instead of Bob being like the real culture and icon dealing with people's situations and problem universal, the next big star was a guy called Yellow Man, who was singing I'm Getting Married in the Morning, you know. And then, you know, you have Sean Paul and, you know, different witches. And I can't knock it because it's not my generation. I came from the generation of Bob Dylan, Bob Marley, who we were dealing with more conscious social commentary music, which was dealing with, you know, the whole civil rights movement and all that. Whereas now it's like, it was more a we generation. Now it's a me generation. It's me, I. Although I've seen a little change in America now, where it's the first since when I went to school in the late 60s, early 70s, that the students in America are more conscious now. You know, you have the Occupy Wall Street and the 99%, so they're more thinking about them as a whole because of the conditions in America. It forces them not to be just individualistic.